Hello everyone, and welcome to my second Borderlands 3 build, the Elemental Slayer. This is the current Amara build I've been running whilst playing Borderlands 3, and it's my go-to build for easily winning boss fights on True Vault Hunter mode Mayhem 3. In this video I'll cover all the skills I chose, what equipment I'm using, and talk about how the build plays and why I enjoy it so much. If you want to skip to any section, then there will be timestamps in the description below. Before I get started with the skill section of this build, I want to let you all know that I've left a link in the description to the skill tree of the character, so you can easily bring that up for reference at any time. I figure it's probably the easiest way to choose the same skills as me if you fancy giving this build a try. To kick things off, we start on the Fist of the Elements skill tree with the Anima skill maxed out. This gives a large boost to status effect damage and duration, essential for any elemental Amara build. Next is Infusion at 4 out of 5. This will convert 32% of damage dealt to action skill element, meaning that all of your attacks are dealing a portion of fire, shock, or corrosive damage. After this we can max out the Tempest skill, boosting elemental damage by 30% and giving an additional boost of 20% to shock damage specifically. This plays really well into the elemental side of things, and the shock damage is particularly helpful against a vast number of the bosses I regularly fight. The Illuminated Fist skill only requires a single point to max out and gives you a 75% increase to melee damage, whilst also making the damage type match your action skill element. For just 1 point, I find the boost to melee is well worth it. Wildfire is a skill I decided to only put a single point into. What this means is that there's an 8% chance that status effects spread between nearby enemies. I was more concerned with just having a chance rather than it being likely, hence only 1 point spent. The Dread skill is another single point max skill which grants bonus damage for 8 seconds after using Phase Grasp. Additionally, you get an instant reload to your equipped weapon if the Phase Grasped enemy dies. I put 1 point into Indiscriminate. This will give all bullets that hit enemies a chance to ricochet to other nearby enemies. This isn't a skill which changes how you play, but it is a real nice lucky bonus to sometimes get, helping to make you a more efficient killer. As a build with an elemental theme, Deep Well is a skill well worth investing in. With just a single point, all guns with an element gain an extra 20% magazine size, letting you hold down the trigger for longer. The Catharsis skill makes enemies affected by elemental status effects explode when they die, dealing action skill elemental damage to nearby enemies. This does have an 8-second cooldown, so don't expect it to constantly be triggering, but it's a nice little bonus to have from time to time. Next is a single point in Sustainment. This will grant us 4% lifesteal whenever you deal elemental damage with a gun. You're going to be dealing an absolute ton of elemental damage, so that 4% can often mean your health bar nearly fully recharging after just a second's worth of damage. I'm a sucker for anything that increases survivability, so this perk was a must for me, even at just 1 rank. Penultimately in the Fist of the Elements tree is Conflux at 4 ranks out of 5. This skill will grant you a chance to add an extra status effect onto any enemy you apply a status effect to. Set someone on fire and they might also start melting. Electrocute someone and they may just ignite. What's not to like there? The final skill in this tree is Forceful Expression. This adds 18% damage to all your guns as action skill elemental damage. This is similar to the first skill we chose, however this time it isn't converting but adding, meaning this skill directly increases the damage your guns deal. On to the Brawl tree now, where we start with Root to Rise. I only put 1 point into this, as all it does is raise max health. A nice increase, but far from an essential one. Something I found more valuable was the Personal Space skill, which I maxed out. This increases the damage you deal based on the distance you're at. The closer to the target, the more damage you're dealing. The Clarity skill adds health regen to the character. Although not particularly strong, it is constant, meaning that no matter what you're doing, you're gaining health back. Next up, I put 1 point into Samsara. Whenever you deal damage to an enemy with your action skill, you gain a stack of Samsara, increasing your gun damage and health regen. What this means is that you get a quick boost when you Phase Grasp an enemy, making it far easier to take down grass foes. After this skill, I maxed out Helping Hands. For 15 seconds after you've used your action skill, you gain 40% damage reduction, making you substantially harder to kill. These two past skills combined make use of your action skill buff you both offensively and defensively, making it always a good choice to use. Mindfulness is a skill I chose to max out. With this skill, whenever Amara takes damage, she gains movement speed, and reduces shield regen delay. This effect stacks up to 25 times, but only lasts for 5 seconds. When taking normal damage, this will mean you're getting just a very short boost. However, when you start taking damage over time, you'll see that this bonus lasts for longer, giving you the speed to make it to wherever you need to go. Next is Find Your Center. This is a single point skill which gives a 100% increase to melee damage. On top of this, it also increases range of melee attacks for 20 seconds after using your action skill. For just 1 point, this is a significant enough boost to really make it worth spending that point. Back onto movement speed now with Vigor. I had this maxed out, meaning that whenever I killed an enemy with my action skill, I got a 10% speed increase for both myself and anyone I was playing with. Extra movement speed is always a nice bonus, so why not share it with your friends? On the next line of a tree, we have one with Nature. I put 2 points in this in order to get to the next level. As for what this skill does, it will increase both maximum health and elemental damage reduction. The element that is reduced is whichever you're using as your action skill. I find the bonuses normally aren't too drastic from a skill, but they do at least make you that little bit harder to kill. The penultimate skill we have is Do Unto Others. Maxed out at a single point, this skill sends out an energy orb of action skill element that seeks out whichever enemy damages you. There's an 8-second cooldown for this skill, at least ensuring the screen isn't filled with energy balls seeking down targets. Finally, in the skills tree, we have Guardian Angel, which, if I'm being honest, is the whole reason I spec into the Brawl tree. What this skill does is gives you an immediate second wind when you fall into fight for your life. This second wind gets you back to 50% health and makes a knockback Nova, giving you some breathing space when you get back up. As this is an incredibly powerful skill, it has a lengthy 2-minute cooldown. What this does mean though is that if you're able to just stay alive for 2 minutes after every time you go down, then you're functionally immortal. Not a bad skill to have as far as I'm concerned. Obviously these aren't the only important skills, we also need to take a quick look at our action skill. Here I went with Ties That Bind, an upgrade to the standard phase grasp which will link together enemies near the grasped enemy, causing a portion of damage to be shared to each linked enemy. With the sheer number of hordes you deal with in this game, this is an incredibly strong upgrade to choose. Additionally, I had the Revelation Augment. This makes it so that phase grasp creates a Nova when it damages someone, helping to share damage even further. Finally, we have the Chosen Element. Here I've gone with Soulfire, turning my action skill element to Incendiary. This can be switched out whenever the situation calls for though, in case you need to focus on shock or corrosive damage. On to equipment now, and here there's going to be a fair amount of leeway, especially when it comes to the weapons. The guns you'll be seeing on screen now are the ones I was using in this footage. The focus I was going with them though was a mix of weapon types, each with an element that wasn't the same as my action skill. Other than this, it was just a case of picking the strongest weapons I could lay my hands on. For my shield, I was using the Recharger. This instantly replenishes itself after breaking, making it feel like it's got double its actual capacity. On top of this, I managed to pick up an anointed variant, which makes it so Amara emits Novas whilst using Phase Grasp, an added bonus which I certainly didn't feel like passing up. I also had equipped the Spectral Phaserker class mod. All of the skill boosts with this apply to skills I had already chosen, just improving them further. It also grants the Rush ability, granting you max rush stacks whenever you use your action skill. These improve both weapon damage and action skill cooldown rate, both invaluable boosts to have. The biggest benefit though comes from one of the additional bonuses. Plus 25% weapon damage is something you'll sometimes come across on Siren class mods, and it's by far the greatest boost you can hope to get, honestly making everything else pale in comparison. For a grenade, I had myself a Cryo Hex. If you haven't tried out the Hex before, I can highly recommend it, as it's perfect for crowd control. The variant I had was also a Homing Merv, which is the ideal one to look out for. Finally, we have the Artifact, for which I have the Knife Drain Auto Idol. This gave me melee lifesteal and restoration of 18% health whenever I killed an enemy. This just adds even further to the survivability I've got in place, making this character real difficult to kill. With skills and equipment out of the way, all that's left is for me to give some info on how playing this build works, and honestly, there's not all that much to say. You want to be using Phase Grasp as often as you can to try and trigger extra abilities. On top of that, just try to stack as many different types of elemental damage as you possibly can. I find this to be a fairly well-rounded build to play as, hence I use it quite so often, as it really doesn't have any significant weak points. With some strong gear and a little experience at playing the game, this is a loadout that should carry you through the very worst the Borderlands can throw at you. And that's it for this Borderlands 3 build. If you want more of these, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments if there's any changes you'd like to see to builds in the future. As always, thanks for watching. Sarge out.